that takes my lunch money after school every day is here, and I can't do anything about this. I'm helpless, you know?
Yes.
And I couldn't do this. In that moment, I couldn't cure it. And I was, but fortunately, it didn't come, see, the actual herpes didn't come for about a day till after the feeling started. You know, I had a very, you know, kind of long time. My outbreaks were like every 3 months or something.
That was me too.
Yeah. And so I had some time, maybe hours it would take for the thing to come. And you know, in a few minutes, I passed over my dread.
Yeah.
And I took the herpes out.
Wow.
Yeah, I took out the herpes. And the feeling went away. And it kept coming back for about a week, and every time it came back, I whacked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I never got the outbreak.
Yeah.
I never had the outbreak, and then it stopped coming back. And I kept finding herpes. You haven't learned how to do this. So you actually haven't learned how to cure your herpes yet.
No.
But anyway, I just kept taking it out, and at some point, it didn't come back. You know, if you keep shooting them when they come down the hill, at some point, no more of them come down the hill.
How long has it been since you've had an outbreak then? How long has it been since you
I cured it in 1993.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Because I get the big
I had that.
Stress
I had the lip and genital. I had both.
Yeah. Great.
Let me see if there's anything else I have to tell you. Oh, yes. Oh, report your cures in the poll.
Report my...
Where you tested that you cured something or some things.
Right.
After you leave here, when you go to the homepage, you join the cure drive, and then there's on the homepage it says report cure. Okay. Click on that, and it goes to the page, and then you go to the form, and you click the little boxes, and that will, and you test how many cures you had. Remember, like you were testing how many trauma you had?
Right.
Well, you test how many cures you had.
Yeah.
So, and then you report, you know, whatever it is. And then maybe you'll have more by the time you get home. You know, you can cure things in your car. I once cured a kidney problem in my car in 10 minutes on the way from the park to my house. This was in Philadelphia in 1994, and I haven't had a kidney problem since then, I will say. But it was a you know, suddenly occurring kidney problem. Next time we do this, I'm going to guarantee you that you are going to discover things you never knew you had wrong with you.
Okay.
That'll be
I don't know
it.
how good that sounds.
Yeah, really. Yeah. We will. It's like taking your car to the mechanic.
Right, exactly.
Yep, you're going to need a... That's it for this one. Wave goodbye, Gracie.
Bye.
Well, same lecture, different day. It is the next installment in this saga. And it is, you know, I told you this was the turning point of my life, so I might as well tell you why. I mean, it's really, this is the transformation. It's what it looks like to becoming somebody who cures something. Okay, it's the summer of that year, 96, and Bill went to a huge, like a convention for gay men. You know, what it was like, it was probably, I mean, he told me a little about it, but it was sort of like probably like a whole life expo. You know what those are like, where you have all these workshops going simultaneously, and you know, you have to pick the one you want, and there was like around 2,000 men there. So you see, the question we're asking here, okay, you want to look back on this experience that I'm telling you about, where I helped Bill cure his hepatitis. When he called me, I freaked. I mean, I was scared to death, you know, because, I mean, I was going like, this better work, you know. He's going to die. I mean, it turns into liver cancer. I could imagine, you know, visiting Bill, you know, when he was, you know, dying. What was that going to be like? I had watched somebody die of cancer before I learned how to cure things. You know, I didn't know you could cure cancer when she died, Jackie. Jackie was a friend of Bill's too. Jackie was the doctor who ran the cancer support groups at Pennsylvania Hospital. And she'd had a mastectomy when I met her. She was the only woman I ever was lovers with who died. That was a rite of passage. Whoa, I didn't want to go through that with Bill. You know, I was, whoa, okay, you know. Oh boy. And so, of course, the reason why I was so scared, I mean, what was I to be scared about, you know? I cured my herpes, and herpes is a virus, and hepatitis B is a virus. So what was the problem? What was the big problem, you know? The big problem was I didn't know you could cure things with any degree of certainty. I wasn't somebody who cures things. I was somebody who doesn't cure things, who had cured a couple of things. That's why. You know, that was the big problem. You know, there you got it right there. You know. Oh man, I was picturing myself at Bill's funeral when he called me. Not a pretty picture. Okay, so anyway, so Bill went to this convention for gay men, and they had this point where mostly it was these small workshops and people would pick their workshops, but they had this point where everybody could get together, and I guess everybody probably didn't get together at that point, but there were around 1,500 guys, you know, in the room or in the auditorium or whatever it was, and the leader, the facilitator, invited them to stand up and say if they wanted to say anything. And Bill stood up and he said, "I cured hepatitis B." And he said, "I believe it's possible to kill HIV. We can also cure HIV." And the facilitator said, "Bill," he said, "you shouldn't be in this. You should be leading this." He said, why aren't you giving a workshop? You know, he said, play at your level. And see, that is one of Bill's main problems. Has always been that he doesn't play at his level in life. You know, he doesn't do what he can. But you know, I will say you have to give Bill some credit, because Bill has stood up, like he stood up at this gathering, you know, and like for another example, like Bill once cut off all federal funding to the city of Philadelphia because of their discriminatory hiring practices. Bill was one of 6 people in charge of civil rights in this country for years. He was the director of HUD for the Northeast region. And he, you know, he wore an ear, he had his ear pierced in the, you know, early in the 80s, you know, in the Reagan administration, he wore an earring to work. And they looked at him, you know, I guess he said to me, he once said to me, like, they looked at me and they said, well, this guy is outing himself in here now. This is the wrong time to do this, you know. Maybe we should put him in charge of civil rights. And that's what they did, you know, they put him in charge of civil rights, and he really did stand up for civil rights. You know, Bill was a fighter. I mean, you have to give Bill a lot of credit, you know. I was proud of him a lot of times when he was doing my courses, and he was really an exemplary, he was an example of what I taught my students, you know, to confront, to create confront, you know, like Dr. Phil does. I like Dr. Phil, you know, he's carried on the good work, you know. He has. You got to give him a lot of credit too. So anyway, after this thing broke, a whole bunch of guys came over, and you know, they were slapping Bill on the back. Hey, Bill, great going, you know, man, you really said it. And not a single person came over to him and said, okay, let's wipe HIV off the map. Not a single person. You know, and you know, there had to be like hundreds of those guys were positive and were on the cocktail. You know that. And actually there, you know, yeah, it was 1996. You know, I mean, a lot of those guys were on the cocktail, and not a one came over. I am looking for the person who will end the HIV epidemic. So if you bump into her or happen to have been her college roommate or whatever, or his college roommate, tell him to give me a call, okay? And we'll do it, you know? I am looking for that person. First, they'll have to become somebody who cures things, because obviously they're not, or they would have ended the epidemic, right? There wouldn't be any epidemic if somebody who came along who could, you know, and who was, you know, who was the person, you know. Anyway, whatever. So we'll get him, tell him to get in touch with me. Anyway, okay. So the guy walked over to this guy. The other guy came over to Bill, and this guy said, "Help me." He said, "I'm dying." And he just wasn't HIV positive. He had AIDS. He had had his second pneumonia. His doctor told him, "One more pneumonia and you're out of here." His name was Chuck LaSpada. And he said, "Please," he said, "please help me." He said, I'm going to die." And Bill said, "Okay." And he got him on the phone with me. I thought, "I'll call Bayard." You know? I think Bill called me also. He said, "I told this guy to call you," and whatever, you know, whatever. But anyway, so when Chuck called, I said, "Come over." But this time I said, "Come for the weekend." See, because I realized, like, this guy's dying. I better make sure that we actually. I mean, I didn't even know, like, he could have developed he could have showed up with pneumonia, you know. And I realized, I said, but whatever he's got, when he comes here, we are curing it. I don't care what it is. At this point, I had become somebody who cures things. That was it. See, you know, Bill has had, I have to say about Bill, that Bill has had this effect on me throughout my life. This was not the only time where he created a major transformation in my life, and this was one of them. Bill is, I would say that he is one of the people, at least, who is responsible for me making this transformation, because he threw this responsibility at me, you know, for him being a ditz, for one thing, and also for, you know, Chuck. And so, and plus he stood up and he set an example, and he was with me. I mean, he was fighting alongside me in some way, in his way, you know. Maybe he could have done more, but, you know, whatever he could do, whatever he saw he could do, at least he tried to do. And so, okay, so Chuck came over, and he came Thursday, and he was, you know, he was only had this, you know, he just looked real waxy, okay, let's put it that way. And I said, okay, you know, we're going to cure it tomorrow morning. We'll go to the running track. We'll do. I figured I'd do what I did with Bill. And I said, but tonight, I said, we should go shopping because we got to get food for the, you know, he got there around 6, I guess. And I said, we go out together. We'll buy food for the weekend. So we went to BJ's Price Club, right? And we're pushing a shopping cart around. You know, he's helping me shop. You know, and I'm, you know, throwing things in the cart, and all of a sudden I just couldn't hold back anymore. And I said, okay, we're going to cure this right now. We were walking away from the food and produce area. I'll never forget it, you know. And I said, let's just cure it right now. And I had him start taking it out. And he, like about, after he did like the second or third removal, he went like, he said, I'm getting dizzy. And I went, uh-oh. He's on a concrete floor, right? So I said, oh, wait a minute. I didn't expect this. Bill didn't get dizzy. Nobody had ever gotten dizzy on me before. And then he started, and I had him keep doing it. He started telling me he was nauseated and he was seeing double. And I took him off the aisle. I said, come here. We went into the side aisle and I sat him down on something and I said, just keep going. I was scared then too. I got a little scared then, but I just said, okay, I figured because some nutritionist I knew mentioned something they call die-off. And I went, so see what happened was at first I got a little scared, but then I realized, I said, he's killing this thing. That's what this is. It's dying off, you know? it's exactly what this guy talked about. I remembered this. So I said, just keep going. Take it out. Keep taking it out. And see, in the nutrition world, of course, it takes weeks or months or whatever for something to die off. But in this case, it took like, 10 minutes or whatever, and he was fine. All of a sudden, he was fine. Everything, all that passed. And he was in this really, really profound version of the calm, clear place that you see Molly going to, right? Well, it was, in his case, he was zonked. It wasn't like Molly, where she's just feeling relaxed. I mean, he was, whoa. I've been there, I have experienced that many times, actually. And like when you really cure something, that's major. When you cure something that's major, that's what happens. And so, that was his story. Chuck never got another pneumonia. He never had any other problem, I guess. He may have had other problems, but basically he talked to Greg a couple of years later, and he was fine. So that's it. People cure things. The question is, who's going to turn into the people who are somebody who cures things? It's a beingness. It's where you you don't get sick. You win. You don't get sick. You win. That's it, baby. Your family doesn't get sick. They get to win. You do not tolerate them doing what, the other thing or whatever it is they're messing around with, or they just say, well, I can't. I'm sick. I can't cure this. I don't know. You don't allow that. That you be someone who cures things. Because another thing you're going to find out is the way this works is you're either infecting them or they're infecting you, okay? So you find out, you either infect them with cure or they infect you with whatever they've got. And there is no middle ground. There is, you can be immune. You can be immune, but not really. It just isn't realistic. It's like trying to quit smoking when you live with a smoker. I don't think so,